Ever wondered why a Snickers bar costs just $1 in New York, but over 14,000 rupiah in Jakarta? It's the same candy, so why the massive price tag difference?
Sorry.
Okay, here's another one. Why do some currencies crash overnight while others, like the US dollar, feel practically bulletproof? The short answer: exchange rates. The long answer? Well, it's still exchange rates, but throw in supply, demand, investor trust, political drama, inflation, and a sprinkle of pure human emotion. That's what really decides how much your money is worth. At its core, an exchange rate is just the price of one currency in terms of another. But the forces behind it? That's where it gets interesting. If the USD EUR rate is 1.07, it means 1 euro gets you $1.07. Simple, right? But behind that number lies a non-stop, high-stakes tug of war, one that shapes everything from the price of your morning coffee to the outcome of international conflicts. Exchange rates aren't just numbers, they're reflections of power, trust, and global economics in motion. So let's break it down. In this video, we're looking into the mechanics behind exchange rates, what actually causes them to rise or fall, how these shifts ripple through entire economies and affect everyday people, and most importantly, why your local currency might suddenly be gaining strength or quietly losing value. From global trade to political drama, from inflation to investor mood swings, we'll unpack it all. Now, once upon a time, money wasn't just paper. It was backed by actual gold. This was known as the gold standard. Every dollar, pound, or franc had to be matched by a set amount of gold in a vault somewhere. That meant governments couldn't just print money whenever they wanted. It kept exchange rates stable, but it also tied their hands. When wars broke out or economies collapsed, countries needed more cash, fast. But if there wasn't enough gold, too bad. Eventually, the system cracked under pressure, and by the 1970s, most nations abandoned the gold standard altogether. By the 1970s, most countries shifted to fiat money, a type of currency that isn't backed by gold or any physical commodity. Instead, it holds value simply because governments declare it legal tender and people collectively believe in it. That's right, your money works because we agree it does. It's less about metal and more about mindset. A psychological contract backed by trust in institutions, economic strength, and political stability. Today, most currencies are floating. Their value rises and falls based on supply and demand in the global market. But not all play by the same rules. Some, like the Hong Kong dollar, are pegged to stronger currencies like the US dollar, meaning their value is fixed within a tight range to reduce volatility. So why peg your currency? Simple. Stability. Pegging to a strong currency like the US dollar can help control inflation, build investor confidence, and make trade more predictable. On the flip side, why let your currency float? Because it gives your economy flexibility. A floating exchange rate adjusts naturally to market forces, helping absorb economic shocks and shifting global trends. But here's the catch. Both systems come with trade-offs. In times of crisis, pegged currencies can break under pressure, while floating ones can spiral if confidence crashes. It's a constant balancing act between control and adaptability. Currencies are traded just like stocks or sneakers. It's all about demand. The more people want your currency, the more valuable it becomes. Imagine global investors eyeing South Korea's booming tech sector. To invest, they need Korean won, so they start buying it. That surge in demand pushes the won's value up. But flip the scenario. If a country faces political chaos or economic uncertainty, investors get nervous. They pull their money out, dump the currency, and demand plummets. And with it, the exchange rate takes a dive. Which brings us to the 5 major forces that drive exchange rates, and the first one is a big one: inflation. Inflation quietly chips away at your currency's power. Let's say in 2022, 10 cedis in Ghana could buy you a carton of eggs. Fast forward to 2024, and that same 10 cedis barely gets you half a dozen. That's inflation. Too much money chasing too few goods. In 2023, Ghana's inflation soared to nearly 38%. And when prices rise that fast, people start to lose trust in the currency. They trade their cedis for something more stable, like US dollars or euros. As demand for the cedi drops, so does its value. The currency weakens not because of some dramatic policy change, but because people simply don't want to hold on to money that's worth less every month. Next up, interest rates, a magnet for global investors. When a country offers high interest rates, it's like flashing a giant sale sign to the world's investors. Everyone wants in, but to invest, they need the local currency. So they exchange their dollars, euros, or yen, boosting demand and strengthening that currency. Take government bonds, for example. If New Zealand offers a 20% return while South Africa offers 10%, investors are more likely to choose New Zealand. But there's a catch. Higher interest rates make it more expensive to borrow at home. Businesses delay projects. Families think twice about home loans. So while foreign money flows in, the local economy can start to slow down. It's a delicate dance. Attract global capital without crushing growth. And central banks walk that tightrope every day. Now let's talk trade. If your country exports more than it imports, like Germany or South Korea, foreign buyers need your currency to pay for those goods. That demand strengthens your currency. But flip the script. If your country relies heavily on imports, say for oil, electronics, or food, you constantly need foreign currency, especially US dollars, to pay for them. That outflow puts downward pressure on your own currency. The bigger the trade deficit, the more vulnerable your exchange rate becomes. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Money just keeps flowing out. Now imagine lending money to someone drowning in credit card bills. Sounds risky, right? That's how investors see countries with massive public debt. When a nation owes too much, it may resort to printing more money to cover the gap, fueling inflation and eroding trust in its currency. Foreign investors might steer clear of that country's bonds or demand higher interest rates to offset the risk. The result? Lower demand for the currency. And just like that, it starts to weaken on the global stage. However, sometimes it's not data, it's drama. A currency can plunge not because of actual economic collapse, but because people think one is coming. If investors even suspect a government might default or catch wind of political chaos, they start dumping that currency fast. It doesn't take a policy shift. Sometimes it just takes a headline or a tweet. Yes, really. This is where markets run on emotion. Fear spreads, confidence crumbles, and currencies move. Because in the world of money, perception is reality. Still think it's all just numbers. In 2008, Zimbabwe's hyperinflation got so out of control, people were buying eggs with $50 billion bills. No joke. You can just Google it. The local currency became so worthless it was cheaper to burn than to use it for toilet paper. Compare that to the Japanese yen, which has remained relatively stable for decades. When the yen weakens, tourists celebrate. They get more souvenirs for their dollars. But for locals, it's a different story. Imported goods get pricier and everyday life gets more expensive. That's the trade-off. A strong currency helps consumers but can hurt exporters. On the other hand, a weak currency boosts trade but punishes purchasing power. Every country is walking that tightrope, trying to keep balance, knowing someone's always going to feel the squeeze. So what does all this actually mean for you? Well, if you're a traveler, exchange rates decide how far your money takes you. If you run a business, they determine how much you'll pay to import goods. If you're an investor, currency swings can boost or wipe out your returns. And if you're a citizen, the strength of your currency affects everything from food prices to your country's global influence. That's why governments fight to protect it, and why you should pay attention. Exchange rates aren't just abstract numbers on a screen. They shape what you eat, what you wear, where you travel, and whether your paycheck still stretches by the end of the month. Understanding currencies isn't just for economists. It's for anyone who earns, spends, or dreams of going global. Because in today's world, money moves, and when it does, it moves everything with it. So the next time you see a headline about currency collapse or wonder why your online shopping cart just got pricier, remember, it's not just numbers. It's supply, demand, trust, politics, and yes, even vibes. Now that you hopefully understand how exchange rates work, which currency do you think will dominate the next decade? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe for more.